Like she's literally fine. All right, guys.
Life is tough for her.
Welcome back to the Library of Alexandria. I've been missing from the YouTubes for a long time because school is super busy. But we have made special time to talk about The Emperor's Blades, Book 1 in February of the Untitled Throne that began the most controversial read-along to date. I had 2 successful ones with Feb Rising and August of the Apt. And then we hit this, and as Klaus calls it, February of the Unhauled Throne. So yeah, opinions were different across the board on this one, and I've made adjustments to further read-alongs just to prevent I never expected such a thing. And so we're going to talk about this book, and it will certainly, we are all at differing levels of this book. And we can talk about it. And hopefully someone here in the comments actually enjoys this book, so it's not just a complete Jake and Jimmy crap. Look, the Bee's Knees excited here. Fantasy Babble, good to see you. Anitha, yes. Zibby, Derry, Jennifer Robin, Arian. Dang, good to see everybody. Yes, Andrew actually liked Emperor's Blade. Fantastic. Am I usually not on the right, Evie? Is it usually like this?
I feel like the lead of the string's always in the top.
Yeah,
right.
I'm used to being in the top right because I'm usually not the lead.
There you go. It's fixed. Another Sarah.
It's so bad.
Yeah, lots and lots of people here. So good. So if you don't know these 3 people, these are wonderful booktubers that you should absolutely follow if you do not already. I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves very quickly, and you can decide if you hate them or like them, depending on what they have to say next. So the pressure is on. All 3 of them appeared on Book Jeopardy, so you probably know them from that. So Jake, you can go ahead and start. Introduce yourself and your channel.
I'm Jake. I'm famous for losing the entire time for Book Jeopardy and then getting the last question right through a sheer guess and therefore not coming last. I do a lot of reviews for books that are mostly fantasy and sometimes sci-fi. Yeah.
And now you are the single-handed crusader to stop the injustice of Sun Eater 4 being review bombed.
Yeah, but it got fixed. Goodreads did something.
Yeah, that's trash. People having only 1 review, and they're just did Rockio do something to get a bee in their bonnet somehow?
I have no idea, but I was shocked when Goodreads fixed it. I was fully expecting to just have to be explaining for the next years why Kingdoms of Death had a low Goodreads review and to just ignore it. But
well, Isaiah's not reading it yet, so
anyways, Goodreads did something good, so
that's
good job, Goodreads.
Good on that.
Jimmy Nuts, aka real life friend now.
Yes, I did meet you, Alan, and it was a wonderful time. I actually like Alan more in person than I do online. Which I like you quite a bit online, so that's a compliment. But yeah, I'm Jimmy Nuts. I'm from the Fantasy Network. I'm sure most of you have heard of me by now, considering that me and Alan have talked about a full work week on BookTube. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. I was hoping that I would enjoy this book a little bit more, but I do think it has some merits, albeit a few. But I'm excited to talk about this with everyone, and it's going to be a good time. I'm also famous on Book Jeopardy for, I think I was in the lead or very close to being in the league, and then I just bet everything because everyone else was being cowards, and I was like, I'm not going to.
I bet everything as well.
Yeah, but you were so far down, it didn't matter.
Sarah?
So Pippin decided, I'm Sarah, I have a dog named Pippin, who's right beside me, and he was fed at 5 o'clock. And at 9:37, he decides he's going to eat his supper as loudly as possible right beside me. So I apologize for that. But yeah, I was also on Book Jeopardy. I bet moderate amounts.
Coward.
Won every time and is a Hall of Famer.
Nice.
Now he's drinking. I'm going to mute it.
Discussed more before why men tend to lose Book Jeopardy, and I think it's because they're more aggressive with their guesses, and so they because Adrian only lost to Sarah because of a poor guess, a poor high value guess late.
I feel like this is a false narrative.
It's true.
I had over double Adrian's score.
And no. Yes, but in Final Jeopardy, what he wagered, if he wagered all of it, and because you did not wager all of it, if he had not lost that money.
I wagered 0.
Yes.
If I wagered anything, he had to get more than double to catch me.
he would have passed you if he hadn't have missed that question. Is what I'm saying.
But it depends on what I wagered. If I hadn't wagered 0,
that's true. But as it stood, if ceteris paribus, everything else being the same.
But if he was within distance of me, I wouldn't have bet 0.
I feel like I remember this and figuring out that she
account for all variables, Sarah. I'm just saying.
I remember because I was watching this and I was like, Sarah should bet $249 and win by 1.
He has come the closest to toppling. He's also the only guy who's ended up in the freaking championship round. So.
Adrian was excellent. I'm kidding.
I'm not taking it away from you. I'm just saying he lost by less than what the value of the thing he missed was. So yes, it would have changed it, but hush. I can't factor in all those variables. Oh, sorry. Sarah's also a doctor, so she knows better than I do.
Yes, Dr. Sarah.
Dr. Sarah.
I told both of you that you don't have to make that part of your everyday.
Dr. Sarah, how dare you?
Figure 5. Shut up. Figure 5. Give you the.
What if I told you I hit a figure 4 leg lock in the middle of a jiu-jitsu class like 3 weeks ago?
Look. That's amazing.
It was amazing because everyone was like, he's not trying. Oh my God, he did it. And the guy tapped. I was like, let's go.
I like how in the manga 20th Century Boys, the big fat twins are always trying to do like figure 4 leg locks on the little kids. They're like, oh, get him in the figure 4. I'm like, I didn't realize that was popular over there. Anyway, let's move on. So Chronicles of the Unhewn Throne, The Emperor's Blades. I think let's go ahead first before we start. Let's talk about the kind of Let's go ahead and talk about our expectations going into this book, because I had heard a lot of good things about this series from not only Patrick, but I think Books of Brittany really likes this series. I think she gave the first book 4.5 stars. I've heard nothing like a lot of good things about the series. Like before it was a read along, I had not heard anybody trash it. Like none. I had heard no trashing. Because if I had, I wouldn't have submitted it for a choice, which, for the record, is not what I voted for. So,
just to get it clear. Pippin needs to go outside. I'll be right back.
I voted for freaking KJ Parker. I would always vote for KJ Parker.
I did as well.
Alan, what were your overall thoughts, though?
What?
What was your overall vibe with this book?
Well, we're going to talk about that in a second. I did not. It was not as good as I had been led to believe. My overall vibe is that I did not enjoy it very much, but part of that is I didn't think it was very good to start with, and part of it is that everyone else thought it was crap. However, I thought it ended like the back part. We'll talk about that later, but the back part of the book, I actually found myself enjoying it later, thanks to Simon Vance. But we'll talk about why in a second. But I wanted to know what you guys thought was going your experience was going to be like. What did you heard about this series going in?
I'd heard almost nothing about this series. I vaguely knew Petrick liked the author. I obviously I'd looked on Goodreads and saw a friend rating. There were some high ratings there. There were some low ratings. Jimmy read it before me, and I knew he was not particularly enthusiastic about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I like quite a few books. I like some books Jimmy isn't particularly enthusiastic about. So I knew very little about it going in. And then the prologue, I was really good. So I was actually I was hyped 10 pages in. I was like, this is going to be good. But
I didn't realize that, Ben. I must have missed the Vanguard and only caught the second wave because I was monitoring the chat, which I'll never do again, and just seeing wow, no one likes this book. What's going on? Jimmy, what did you heard about this book prior?
So I actually bought Empire's Room because Petrick loved it, and I misread Petrick's review where it says you should never read this first. You need to go back. It'd be I think he said it'd be like reading Tawny Man before Farseer.
Yeah.
I actually didn't read it correctly, and I thought he said you don't have to read it. So I bought the sequel book first. Never read it, but I was really excited about it because I've heard a lot of really good things. And then Alan actually got me this for Christmas. I don't know if you remember that, Alan, but it made me feel,
me? Oh, I'm so sorry.
It made me feel extra bad that I didn't
when
like
Jesse for Christmas got me the horrible Fate of the Fallen book. And she's like, I'm so sorry I gave you this crap for Christmas.
I was so upset because 1, I wanted to like it, but 2, because you had gifted it to me. And I was like,
look, Jimmy, at least you finished it, which is more than what I can say for half of my friends.
Hey,
so at least you finished it.
Yeah, I mean, I was I was always going to finish it, but I came off of Malazan and I was excited to get into something new. So because a lot of people say, oh, you read a big series and you go through a slump. That really wasn't the case. I was actually really excited to get into a new world, and knowing that there's sequel books, I'm saying, okay, the world's probably going to expand. Like this is a chance to be a really cool, kind of relatively unknown series. And I was really excited. So I gave a lot of the stuff I didn't like in the first half a pass.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I thought the second half was a little bit better, I just, at some point I had to say, no, it's not really working. So.
Gotcha. Real quick, the next read along starts in May, Carrie, and it's the Shadow Campaigns, which is a Flintlock fantasy series that I have read before, and I'm super excited to read with other people because it's one of the two quintessential Flintlock fantasy series. You got Powder Mage and Shadow Campaigns are the most well known, and it's great. I really, really enjoyed Shadow Campaigns. I've read Wexler's, a different series of Wexler that the first book I don't like as much, but Shadow Campaigns I love. It's Napoleonic War with magic and demons. And the main character, one of the main characters is a woman, and I love Winter. Winter's an awesome character. I can't help how you feel, Evie. Maybe you're projecting. Evie. So also projecting. Sarah, your thoughts?
Before the read along came up, I knew that Yolene liked this book, and our reading taste tends to align. She likes like historical fantasy, like some of the romance inclined fantasy that I also like. So I was like, oh well, our taste.
Sorry, I missed it.
Yolene, her channel is called Yolene Reads.
Yeah.
So I thought that this might be one that overlapped as well. And then the read along started, and everybody was hating it. And I was like, oh no, I need to adjust. I need to temper my expectations. And I think that actually was helpful because I expected it to be horrible. And so then when it was just fine, I was like, oh, yes, it's fine. And so it probably like made it a little bit easier to read, I think.
I gotcha. So those of you who, does everyone use star ratings here? Are we all still among the intelligentsia that still uses star ratings?
I use star rating and decimal ratings.
Yes. Okay, good. So what star ratings did you guys give it? What'd you give it? I ended up giving it a 3 because of Simon Vance, who is
Simon Vance was excellent. Yeah.
A brilliant audiobook narrator, because when I began, I was reading it and just was not enjoying my time. And I had just listened to Simon Vance read Tagana, and he's fantastic. And so I enjoyed it significantly more toward the end. So it ended up with 3 because I was not liking it at all. And yeah, I'll end up at 3 because I did not, by the time it was over, I did not hate it, but I did. I'm not sure I enjoyed it. Jake, what'd you give it on your?
I kind of gave it like 2.5 to start with, but then over time I was like, I was struggling to come up with like a justification for that half. Because I was like, I kept thinking there's a lot of stuff.
A 2 out of 10?
No, out of 5. Not 2 out of 10. No. So I gave it like 2.5 stars, and then I kind of bumped it down to like 2 stars.
Okay, I thought you gave it a 2 out of 10.
No, I didn't hate it that much. This was like, I read this and I was like, I don't think this is good. But I didn't like hate reading it. Like I wasn't actively like, I want to bang this book against my head and drive myself into unconsciousness instead of reading this book. So it was like 2 stars.
Nice. 2.5 for Anitha. Ben actually went ahead and just continued and read all 3, and he said, but then he read Skullsworn and actively despised it. He said it was one of the worst things he's ever read.
I said like he read this mediocre trilogy just to get Skullsworn.
So anyway,
sometimes being a reader, it hurts, man.
I know. So so round up to 3.5. Nice. 3 stars. Yes, Heather, you will have to make sure you tell us what you loved about it when we get there. That is what I really like. Simon Vance as an audio narrator as well. Nice. 4 stars. This is in the comment for Skullsworn. I already did that. Simon Vance, 2 stars, and then 4 stars. Wow, this was all over the bloody place. Not one person that I saw gave it 5. And I also didn't see anybody give it 1. And that's because I think all the 1-stars just abandoned ship. Because the first thing you do when a ship is going down and all of your friends are on it is you leave them to die.
Yeah, the only one I saw was Klaus, but he DNF'd on like chapter 11, so. Like, he was like, I'm not going to be continuing with book 2. I'm like, you didn't even read book 1.
Through this read along, I learned exactly the people who would crew my old timey galleon, because and like who would actually like help us like not have the ship like literally sink to the bottom of the ocean, and who would literally be gone. Like, oh, I guess I'll
I would love to claim
my
I
main
finished the
sail
book.
myself.
I would love to claim I finished the book out of some kind of loyalty. I was just like, it's a debut author. I'll give him to the end. I probably would have still done this if it wasn't a read along.
Look at Maya's like out. 3 stars, and the sequel's 2. Oh
Yeah, Edgar is not big.
That's not the info we want. We want to hear that it gets better.
that's the ones after.
I heard from most people that if you didn't like book 1, it gets worse from there.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I've seen the people who like book 1 seem to think it gets better, but I haven't seen anyone be like lukewarm or mid on book 1 and then have them think the later stuff is really good, which is what's kind of
Hey, Jake /
concerning.
Jimmy. Look at this.
Huh. Especially because he tends to be a pretty harsh book rater.
Wow.
I mean, hey, everyone's got their taste, right?
Yeah. So another thing about this book is like people who talk about this book, like what they like about it, they're talking about the series, and those people throw out spoilers. Like the main thing that they tell you, like, oh, I love this about, like, are you kidding? Like this? I'm like, do you not understand like how huge of a spoiler that is? What you're telling me doesn't even happen in book 1.
Yeah.
And it's a huge spoiler.
I haven't gotten spoiled because I haven't seen what people have commented on it because
I
I
haven't
stopped
said
caring.
anything because I know Sarah's going to continue the series.
Really?
But like literally everyone is like, oh, but I love, and I'm like, that doesn't happen in the first book. So,
Sarah, why are you continuing?
Because I want to read the second series.
By the way, Sarah, if you read the follow-up for this before the match ship, I will be leaving your Discord.
Yeah, that's. I'll be honest. That's what I'm sitting over here thinking, Sarah. I'm a little offended.
Yeah, I'm also continuing, but only on audio. I will not read it. So
you have so many books to read.
Physical books. What?
You have so many books to read.
Yes, but this is one of the few fantasy books that I don't mind reading on audio.
Fair.
And sometimes, fair. like I read like easier fare, like Dresden or historical fiction or like the Rome detective novels. Like I read those on audio, but sometimes I want like an actual fantasy book on freaking audio. And so this will service. Christmas tree goes out in March or spring break, and it's gone. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So this book has 3 POVs. It's Caden, who is a monk, and it has Valen, who is I guess that elite. He's a Ketrel, like he rides the birds, and he's of the elite unit. And then you have like 4 chapters of Adair, who is the finance minister for the kingdom. And I think she's the oldest? ?
Yeah, because that would be the only reason.
Her being a woman cannot sit the unhewn throne.
Did you know that?
Are you sure?
I didn't. Yeah, I wasn't. I'm not completely sure about that.
Okay, so this is one of the problems. When I started it,
news to me.
I do not like the first 20 chapters of this book. I think the first 20 chapters are bad. I don't think they're good. This book, and I was telling Sarah, this book starts too early. It starts way too early. Like the emperor dies in like chapter 4, but it doesn't matter. Other than Adair's, and we'll talk about her dumb chapters soon. Other than that, it doesn't matter. There's no urgency. The emperor's dead, but it's like, oh well, gotta fix
they could have started with like the trial,
well,
the Ketrel trial.
The emperor could have just died later in the book for all it mattered.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that's always something you hear is like start your story where it begins. Like you don't want to.
The story doesn't begin there. There's no. I did not feel there was any urgency in the first half of this book.
I kind of started feeling like a little bit of like a First Law vibe, where it's like you kind of get introduced to characters, you're just like living with them for a little bit, and I was like, oh, it's like going to be like that. It's going to be like very character heavy, but like immediately,
I would read 20 bad chapters for you.
That's the measure of your friendship.
Yeah.
But like right out of the gate, I remember feeling very put off that the emperor died, and then they weren't allowed to relay that information the quickest way possible, which is by the birds, right? And like they're like, well, you can't fly the bird. I'm just like, the emperor's dead. The kingdom's stability is at risk. And I just remember, and this is right at the beginning, right? So I remember going, James, quit nitpicking. It's a new book. It's a debut. Chill. It's all going to be okay. Just suspend your belief a little bit. And lo and behold, like this is like immediately out of the gate where I was like, oh no, is this going to be one of those books? And it was one of those books.
It really, because it's like the reason they can't do that is just because they want to add conflict to Valen and they need something for him to do. So
It's
they're
like,
just like,
it's the king.
yeah,
And
like,
he's dead.
And
yeah, it's kind of important. And yeah, you know, the heir is just like in the middle of nowhere, so someone could just go.
And it's not like the Night's Watch, even though I felt like it was supposed to be the Night's Watch, but it's not like the Night's Watch where they're apolitical. Like we are not associated with the realms of men. It wasn't like that. At least that this is the highest order of those things, right? And it's supposed to be like the highest. It seems like the highest achievement in martial combat that you can be a part of this group, and then they're like going into taverns and running up tabs and not paying, and it's like, what?
Oh, speaking of a nitpick, the like employee at that tavern, if someone refuses to pay, has to cover the bill.
Yeah, I know. Right?
I would
How
quit.
do you have employees?
I would quit.
Yeah,
Wait,
who would
so-
work there, especially
Okay, hold
when
on.
all
We
the
can
like
nitpick
customers
forever. We'll get there in a
are
second.
annoying, like
Sorry.
But
Kestrel people.
for those of you who like the book, don't worry. I'm going to force Jake and Jimmy to tell me something that they didn't hate.
Oh, I've
And Sarah and I definitely have things to not that we didn't hate. But I think what they're like, I agree with Jake and Jimmy is that there's a lot of internal logical inconsistencies within his own world that it just it's there to manufacture conflict. For example, in the Adair trial scene, after they've got the priest red-handed, whatever, and fine, the dude knows an ancient sacred law that he wants this trial by fire. First of all, the fact that they just don't say no, and this is the trial, you're the defendant. We don't have the Constitution that protects victim rights. Sorry. But then they're like, okay, stick your hand in the fire. He's like, no, I have to do it in my temple. The fact that they're not like, you don't get to pick person who murdered the emperor.
And also, it's a dare that has to control it. What about the judge dude? Why isn't the judge dude like, yeah, if this guy tries to leave, kill him?
I felt like it was always a step short in these regards. Like it just needed one more piece, to work.
Yeah, it's just frustrating. Sarah, what were your thoughts about the first 20? Because the chapter 19 and 20 is the dumb trial where it's like, oh, okay, convicted person, you can decide what your punishment is, because that's how that works. What did you think about the first, like the opening chapters?
Like everybody else said, this book hurts you because it opens with the prologue and you're like, this is going to be cool. And like the setup is so cool. There's so many interesting ideas. And then, yes, the first 20 chapters are a slog. And the part that I struggle with the most is the repetitiveness. So not only can women not sit on the unhewn throne, they cannot, in case you didn't know. There's also just so many adjectives that just keep coming back over and over and over. And it was painful, genuinely painful to get through. And like you said, nothing is happening. Like there's no urgency with any of them. It's not just in the empire. Like it's not just around the emperor and his death. Like also we're given these huge swaths of time with Valen and Caden, who also, this is a nitpick for me. So his name is presumably Valen, but they shorten it to VAL. So am I supposed to that's clearly not Vale, or you would put an E on the end. So like, is his nickname Val? So is his name Valen? Like what? Did not like that.
I had that issue. That's how I knew that Sazed was pronounced Sazed, because I said Sazed, like Sazed, because that's how I would pronounce it. And then they shorten it to Saze, and I'm like, oh, well, Sazed can't be right.
This must be what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no, you would think that if they were going to spend all this time doing nothing, that they would at least put the effort. I'm saying that he would at least put the effort into developing the characters to the point where I cared what happened to them.
Yeah, it's like, at first I was kind of like, whatever, the characters are all right, but it can be like, it can be one of like the fast-paced fun books. But then it's like the plotting of like a slow book. It's like the Blade itself, but I don't give a shit about the characters.
I mean, I will say I actually liked Adair, which I just thought is like backwoods Adele. I don't know, I hate that name, but Adair I did like, because it was the closest to the king dying, which is the catalyst of the story. And let's be honest, in fantasy, like at least for me, that's one of the more interesting things that can happen at the beginning of a book. A lot of my favorite books start off like that, but unfortunately, where it ends up, and like the trial was pretty bad, but I was even willing to kind of like push past that. Like it didn't kill, because it was like the one thing I was hanging on to.
Yeah.
And then Adair's end, while I do believe that there's a lot of really good drama there, and if it was the only example of an adult being irresponsible while overseeing a young person, and not, I would say that he was borderline abusive to Adair. Definitely the other two characters had abusive adults. If that hadn't happened to the other two, and it was like, it could have worked. It really could have. But there's just so much repetition in this book.
Yeah.
Just the evil mentor, I want to keep you down type deal.
Yeah. And Adair, she's the finance. Why did he tell us she's the finance minister? There was not a single discussion about economics in this book. Not one. Like,
I was waiting for it to matter.
It didn't.
I was thinking that like the emperor had actually just said, no, screw it, Adair's going to be the heir, because it's like, okay, he's got this one guy in like Monkland learning about whatever, and then he's got his other kid is like a member of a SEAL team. Those are obviously not useful skills for
Could
running
you guys tell
an
me
empire.
how long Caden was at the monastery and how long Valen's been with the Kestrel? Can you guys tell me?
I couldn't. I don't think
It's mentioned actually.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's not like they're like, oh, in the past 8 years. Oh, for the we know. Stop. Just stop. Trust. Leo Carew did this in The Wolf, and it drove me batty. And then I read The Emperor's Blade and want to go give The Wolf 5 stars because I will take what Leo Carew did.
Retroactive.
I would like to note that Alan has been saltier than me so far.
Because it doesn't. Why did an editor, as Sarah said to me also, why did an editor at Tor Books not catch all the repetition?
100%. And that's the first thing I thought of when I finished the book. I said, wow, who edited that book?
Like, this is what I said in my wrap up.
It's a debut,
this is a book that it just feels like it has things that aren't stylistic choices I don't like. It just has errors. Yeah. Like, it just has things that I'm like,
there's a lot of cool stuff here.
Yeah.
That's
what like
various gods, the magic is awesome.
Yeah, the magic is cool. When you learned that like the monastery was related to like the emotionless dark elf
very
people,
cool.
I was like, oh, that's really cool.
Yes.
I'm gonna give him props here because I thought he was gonna keep doing what he's doing. When the squad like got made after the trial, I thought they were gonna make it a stupidly dysfunctional squad just to add conflict. They actually made squads that made sense. So I will give him full credit there.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he wasn't going to do it, and he did. And I was actually like, this is a squad that makes sense. I don't know what Valen's doing here. All these other people are so much more skilled than him.
They were definitely underutilized.
And the next comment's also correct.
Giant bird. Oh, wrong side. Giant bird on this cover. That looks like the coolest thing.
Yeah.
And
almost never used. And so let's talk about Valen, then we'll go to Caden. Because I agree that someone said, like, this book starts way too late. Like, chapter 41, like, from chapter 40 to 50, this book is like, I was actually for the first time, not like, well, I guess I'm driving. I guess I'll turn the freaking audiobook on. I was finding things to do around the house so I could listen to the audiobook.
Oh, that's good.
The first time it had happened with this book, and that was starting there. But like I said, there's no urgency. My problem with Valen's chapters, they are the elite, right? They are the elite. That's what they're training for. And they've been there 8 years, as we're told repeatedly. It feels like their first year at Hogwarts, where they're just like the fact that they're shocked that, not Bidethal, what's the freaking, it's not Banisher either. What's the leech's name?
I don't remember.
I can't remember.
Sammy Ural and Ballandus or whatever.
Ballandin.
The fact that they're shocked that those people are murderous rapists doesn't make any sense. You've been with them 8 years. They've been psychopaths the entire time. But he treats it like it's our first introduction to Hogwarts, and they're the Slytherin. They're the Malfoy and Crabbe and Goyle.
And would it have hurt, really, for them to be new?
No. Because they're not elite enough to have been there for 8 years.
Yeah, their 8 years didn't actually matter.
That's the problem with most of this. Like we said, the finance minister, there's a lot that just didn't matter. And as Angela says, I hated these chapters because it's nothing but like, oh my gosh, look at how like it's murderous bully, which is a trope I hate, as y'all know, ramped up to 11. everything's like, yo, we're gonna kill you, we're gonna drown you as part of you. What is even any of this?
We could end up on a team together for the rest of our lives, but we're gonna.
Well, you can also go to the island if you don't want to do all of the training. You can just go to the nice island. And
I did see someone say that they thought the people who went to the island they just killed.
Oh, definitely.
Also, you're right, Ben. Where are the adults?
So Valen has his team, and everyone else on that team is like, well, except the guy who literally just doesn't listen to instructions. Like, you've been training for 8 years and you can't figure out to not go too steep, but whatever. They're all very good at something. What does Valen bring to this?
Nothing.
He's supposed to be training as a leader. Like, what is Valen's character?
He has no skill. Sarah, what did you think of the Valen chapters?
So that tends to be the part that I really like. I like the magical training, warrior training trope. That's something that I usually enjoy. And I love those stupid birds, and they do not utilize them to their full potential. Like, all I wanted to see, if I can't have giant bats, then giant birds are the next best thing. And all I wanted them to do was ride around on these birds. And I just did not get enough of it. But I agree. Valen was very bland. It was very difficult. And they spent so much time. Is this spoilery? Are we allowed to talk about spoilers?
We've been talking spoilers forever. You're fine.
Okay. So they spend so much time developing the relationship between him and his friend. And you know that she's going to bite it. Like, you know from the first time that she's on the page that she's either A, the person who's going to betray him, or B, going to die. Like, there was no future for her character. So you get all of these chapters where they're trying to make something either romantic or some tension happen for nothing. Like, for no reason. Did anybody care when she died? Was anybody sad?
No, I literally posted the "oh no" anyway gif in Discord.
Yeah, it was horrible.
And the fact that, like, we're supposed to be like, oh no, who killed her? It's like, it's the murderers. It's the murderous bullies. That's who killed her. Oh, but who could it be? The murderers.
The old
I
double
thought it could have
square.
been like the mentor guy, like the guy running things. And the only reason I thought that is there was like the extremely suspicious pairing for like the archer combination. Like Valen kept getting paired with the archer lady. I forget his name. And I was like, so which I guess apparently was just bad luck.
Oh,
like, that actually doesn't have a thing. I thought maybe that was setting up that it was actually the mentor, because like he inspected the knot and could have changed it, and he could have created the pairing, which actually would have been kind of cool, I think. But that apparently was just not a thing.
Powers can really do anything.
She doesn't need a name. She's known as the world's worst red herring, because did anyone for any amount of time believe that she was responsible? No.
It's like, okay, an orangutan has gone missing, and like the suspects are the four of us here. It was me. I'm the one who loves orangutans. I took it. Like, it's not a mystery. Like, oh, it could have been Jimmy. No, it was Alan. And I will say, guys, it's the most successful read-along live show I've ever done. There are 73 bloody people watching this book.
People love hate.
I have never seen this many people tune in to talk about a read-along book. Anyway, so yeah. Okay. That's something else that I had to say. But Holland, who cares? And I liked most about this book the world. I thought the world's interesting. The Vashta Narada or whatever it is, the Vashti. What is the stupid emptiness thing? It begins with B. I don't know. I don't have my book in front of me. I'd look.
I'll try.
The emptiness thing that Caden's learning, I thought that was cool. The Sestim, that the old angels, is clearly the Nephilim and the Seraphim. That's cool. I thought all their gods were cool. I think saying Kent's, what is it? Kent kissing is stupid.
Oh yeah, I forgot
I
about
hate
that.
made up curse words.
Thank you, Vanyata.
I like some of them.
I thought that was dumb, but the gods were cool, and the fact there's the old gods and the younger gods. I thought that stuff was cool, and even like the weird Morlock people who like eat their eggs and crap, but like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. We saw them one chapter. Who cares? I don't understand. I don't understand what Stavely was doing is the problem. Like, I think he focused on things that nobody cared about, and then just didn't focus on anything that people do care about. Because like you said, Sarah, and like we've all, like What's Valen good at? Valen is bland.
Yes,
I don't get the appeal of
His
Valen.
chapters were just. Jimmy, what'd you think of the Valen chapters?
Well, I thought they were rather bad, mainly because I was most excited for them. Now, I will say Caden liked the enlightened monk thing, but then we figure out it's enlightenment through abuse, and that's played out and kind of tiresome. But Valen, I thought Lynn was such a good side character, and there had actually been some setting up of a relationship between those two to where Lynn was the most interesting thing about Valen. And then she dies to further a very lackluster mystery plot that we all have figured out. And I think it's really important distinction, because when people say, well, not everything can be a twist, not everything can be a turn. Predictable is perfectly fine. I like predictable books, in fact, because a lot of times it's making sure that you're taking the right logical steps to get there.
Yeah.
It does not work in this book because it's the twist to twist back. And it never goes well whenever that happens. It's very few and far between whenever you try to play with the expectation. Like I almost felt like it was like you unveil the curtain. It's like, see, you never thought that'd be it.
Yeah, it's because it wasn't predictable because like foreshadowing clues added up. It was predictable because this is what always happens.
Correct. That's
like,
how
I was trying to make it not that, because I was like, okay, well, it would be stupid if it's this. So like maybe it's the mentor guy, but no. And they'd even have foreshadowing. I'm actually disappointed it wasn't like the mentor guy, because there were actually like, I guess, accidental like foreshadowing clues for it. And I was just like, nope, it's the most obvious person.
I mean, a Night's Watch, and that's what I'm going to keep calling it, the Kestrel, which I called Kestrel in my review, and everyone's like, it's Kestrel.
That's because Kestrels are large.
They're the Kestrel who ride the Kestrel.
Kestrel is a ship from EVE Online I used to play back in the day.
It's also a large bird, which is why he called them the Kestrel.
Yes.
So I wasn't that far off.
No, you just use the real word for birds instead of the made up word.
Yeah, I mean to do it. I meant to do it, obviously.
You're fine. I saw that. I love like in comments, like no one looks at the comments, so you get the same comment 100 times. It's like, I know. Scroll up.
That's why I do live streams, because if I correct it on the live stream, everyone goes, "Oh, okay, he knows," and then they don't leave those comments.
What did everyone think of the guy who was obviously the murderer's name started with B? Once we now know that his thing is emotion, starts monologuing about how important emotion is to him.
Yeah, it killed the ending for me, because I actually thought the ending was getting I thought it was getting good. The prologue is phenomenal of this book. And then in the end, I was like, oh, he's going to save it. And then, like, I'm going to read book 2 because there's some promise here. And then the big monologuing, I was just like, this doesn't fit at all.
The monologue,
like, this is your biggest secret. Why are you monologuing about it?
Freaking, what is his name again? She said it.
Sarah's so upset.
Barandal. Barandal's monologue at the end, where he talks about, like, what it feels like is a middle schooler trying to say as many cuss words and trying to be, like, as inappropriate as he can in front of the teacher because he's trying to individuate. That is literally what this felt like. It did not feel like something that real people say. I was just like, what? Like, are you imagining like what a serial killer would sound like? You should go watch Criminal Minds or something. And they don't sound like this.
I would almost give it credit, as I would almost be okay with it if it wasn't like the only way the plot could be resolved. Like if it was just like, okay, maybe this guy monologues, but until this is supposed to be his biggest secret. And then he just monologues so Caden can figure it out and have what I will say is one of my favorite moments, which is when the jackass guy is like, oh, you're like, I'm going to do this and this. Cause he's trying to rile Caden. Caden is just like, unlikely, dunk. And I'm just like, thank you.
Yeah.
That being said, he's totally alive because there's no body. Like you can look forward to that if you keep reading Sarah. Like he's alive, right? Like no body.
And you didn't even need the monologuing because it wasn't like Caden wasn't. He was going to come in the what we decided was called the
Vanyate.
There we go, Vanyate. He was going to come in with that anyway, and he was going to defeat him, and we could have had the pleasure of figuring out why, or the people around them could have figured out why, but no.
He wouldn't have known to knock out Valen is the issue. But
and like someone said before, the fact that they fly in, they see freaking Sammy Earl, and they know that they're the bad guys, and they just land next to them and are like, "Hey, stop!"
And then the bad guys are like, "We're gonna kill you, not now, in 4 hours."
I think they were hoping that like the guard would be like, "Oh, what? These are traitors? Okay, we'll turn against them," which kind of sort of makes sense until you realize like, why the hell would the guards even believe them if that was true?
I don't really understand why Oot turned. Like, who were they trying to put on the throne? Like, why is Oot trying to kill?
And why did it have to happen then? Did we ever get an answer to that? Like, why now?
No,
Maybe later on.
We'll reconvene at the climax. So let's go back. Sarah, what were your thoughts about Caden's chapters? Someone did say that they felt like the 8 years mattered a little more with Caden, which I do feel that. I feel like Caden had come farther than like Valen. It seemed like first day of basic training.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about Caden's chapter?
I liked the lore that came out in his chapter. So that was the most interesting part. I liked the spider monsters. Those were cool. So like all of these elements are super cool. But then just again, the way that the tropes played out was just overplayed. Like you said, this like enlightenment through torture is something that we've seen a million times. Like, of course we need to have your like poor friend who grew up on the street who resents you. And it's like he put a bunch of fantasy tropes into a bottle and gave it a shake and was like, what can I pull out and put in here? Which sucks because he did have some genuinely cool world building elements. And yes. I don't want to feel like I'm just like, oh, this was, the worst. He sucks, because there were some genuinely cool things, but I think that's what makes it disappointing by turn. It's like you see the potential and then the potential is not reached. And I do think a lot of that stuff could have been fixed through editing. I think that's why when you're traditionally published, that's why you have an editor.
I know. Tor, come on.
I was going to say, he was so on the nose with a lot of the stuff, but I will say when it came to the world building and the magic, I did like that he didn't spoon feed the leech. Like he kind of just started saying it and then we figured it out as we went. Some people probably didn't like that, but I like that approach.
It's literally the only subtlety in the entire book.
It is. It is. And I
have one other subtle thing.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jay.
That is when like the merchants showed up and they start saying like what's going on. Caden has no idea that this would indicate that the Emperor died, but we know that if they're honest, like they would instantly start with, so the Emperor died. So I liked it. I was like, I like how this immediately tells us that they're dishonest in a way that it's also believable for Caden to not know that they're dishonest. But then it kind of got ruined when the guy was like, she's unnaturally good at lying, which is why I could instantly tell she was lying. I'm just like, okay.
I liked the side characters better in Caden's part. First of all, what is his trainer's name?
The new one?
His master's name. The one that fights for him at the end and fights.
Robert De Niro?
No.
Wow.
It's kind of a great book. Nobody remembers anybody.
Rush Hour 3.
I'm bad at names.
It's in the first chapter.
Jackie Chan.
No, stop
it. We know who you mean. Someone in chat's got out of town.
Okay.
Yeah.
Guy is definitely a Kestrine.
Did someone?
He is 100% a flipping Sestrine. He is. That's why he has the Sestrine spear. Like I'm surprised, dude isn't the guy from the prologue, because his name is Tan. Guy from the prologue is Tanis.
He could be.
Half-Elven.
Rampuri Tan. Dude is totally one of the angels. He knows too much about them. He's got his angel spear. I'm calling it now. Anyway, moving on. I like him. I liked Pater a lot, especially Tiny Dance's performance. The little kid is like, guys, there's people here to see him. There's merchants here. I love Pater. And then, rip.
He kills every good
I liked Akil, who is still alive, by the way. My audiobook came with a bonus side short story about Akil during the burning of the monastery. So he manages to make it out.
I'm shocked.
Fire. I know. I'm sure you're shocked. So Akil's still alive.
How much you want to bet he's gonna be mad that he got left there?
No body, they're alive. That's how.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like someone said, Balin faints at the end of every bloody chapter. So I liked the monk stuff. I didn't like. There was a lot of doing nothing. A lot of doing nothing.
The Caden, it was my favorite section of my favorite of the POVs, and this is why actually in hindsight I lowered it to 2 stars, because I'm like, really, this is my favorite of the POVs, and then I still have a lot of issues with it, but it had the most cool stuff. This is a nitpick, but I don't care. It really bothered me when he gets buried up to his neck and is given a glass of water every 3 days. I'm just like, that's not how dehydration works, folks. Like, it's not like a reset counter. Yeah, you can go 3 days without water before you die, but it's not like you then have one glass of water and it's like reset it back to the start. No, you need to go to the hospital.
Look, guys. The bearing you up to your head in the first place.
It's so bad.
It's stupid.
It's not good.
Guy, like they say, well, this is to make sure. It's stupid. It doesn't. I don't understand.
I will say I didn't loathe Cadence chapters or Adair's. Really,
I hated chapters.
I hated the Valen chapters.
Yeah, they were easily my favorite. Yeah,
begrudgingly, like whenever they go down into the cave, and that's like when they find Lynn dead. Like as soon as that happened, I was like, okay, that was the only thread leaving me to this character. I'm out.
There was a riveting mystery you had to get to the bottom of.
And Caden was overall, like, I thought all the stuff around Caden was cooler than Caden, but it's like, okay, that's fine. And then Adair, like, I almost found that ending interesting, but then it's like, oh, she's sleeping with the guy. Okay.
Curb Your Enthusiasm music.
Yeah. The female characters in this book are not very good.
No.
I mean, the characters in this book aren't.
They're certainly not treated very well.
Well, no, they're not. They're not.
Did you know
they can't sit on the onion?
Did you know the only way to refer to a woman who sells herself for money, the only way you can refer to them is a whore?
Oh, okay. So
that's what my mom taught me.
The girl who died. So they're trying to investigate the thing, and they go interview the person. This was one of the chapters that pissed me off because it might be the most convoluted chapter I've ever read. And they go ask about something completely unrelated. And then a prostitute's sister comes in and is like, my sister has been missing for 10 days. 10 days. Remember that. And this is completely unrelated to what they're asking about. And then they're like, well, we have to go help this person, even though it's obviously completely unrelated to the main plot. And of course, they find her dead. And actually, sorry, she hadn't been missing for 10 days, just missing. And they can tell she's been dead for exactly 10 days. If it had been 11 or 9, they could not tell how dead they were. But the way it works, like the way they're measuring it, they can tell if it's exactly 10. And then as soon as they find her, like 5 people come and how did no one notice this person was gone for 10 days? And it might be the most convoluted chapter I have ever read. Like, yeah. In fiction.
It almost feels like a bunch of ideas from a lot of book ideas all put into one.
I said that when I was reading it. Like I said it to somebody that it didn't sound like he wheedled down anything at all. And I understand this as someone who likes to write. The biggest difficulty I have is like, well, what if I only write this one thing? I guess I better put all them ideas in the same one. And, you can't do that. You got to winnow it down.
I felt like that about Cage of Souls, too, by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Same exact feeling. Yeah.
Tchaikovsky, I've liked everything I've read by Tchaikovsky, but I haven't read Cage of Souls yet. You may have.
You should.
Issue of maybe I'll only write one thing. So.
But, yeah, I don't. It's not like it's a huge town. It's a flipping island. There's like one shanty town in the whole thing.
As much as I'm laughing, I actually don't love just dunking on a book.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why we're going to transition into things that it did well. Because like Sarah said, what?
I think I already covered them all.
Like Sarah said, I also saw the potential,
of
some of the things that could have happened here. I thought, like I said, the last 10 chapters, from the minute that freaking monastery starts burning, and they start trying to kill the monks, I was riveted. Now, it didn't execute fantastic. Like we have a stupid monologue with.
I felt the same way about the last 10 chapters as the first 40, which is really cool ideas and then fumble it.
I thought it was much better done. I thought.
Yeah, it was more interesting. But
I thought the fight scenes, I think he's a good action writer. Agreed. Note that the things we don't like are when people stop and start speaking or do anything besides fight. The action scenes I thought were good.
Yeah, I actually write like a thriller. And it might be okay.
I don't think that his writing is all that offensive. I think it's straightforward in a good way, but he does a really good job with word association tied to the emotion and tone of the scene and the characters. So that's the weirdest part to me is he clearly had an idea of the tone that he was going for, but it was so jarring between each of the POVs. And then when they finally came together, it just felt like a mess. But I do think that his prose was fine. I didn't really have an issue with his writing.
Yeah.
I thought his writing was only bad when he was trying to be good. It was the passages where he was trying really hard. He's like, I'm going to say something deep. And it was just ridiculous.
Yeah, I kind of liked his writing style. Like, to me, the thing that the reason I don't like it is I just think the characters are pretty average to bad. The pacing is a mess. As I said, it should have started way later. Like,
if you think about the idea of this story, right, and you have like the monk child, like there's these three kids that are very different disciplines, and who's best to run the throne, we'll have to see. Like, the idea, the outline of this probably looked really good, and he probably submitted.
Voted for this one.
And the premise, I remember reading the back of the book whenever you shipped it to me, and I was like, this sounds sick. Like, I'm really pumped for this. And it just did not deliver on the promises made in a lot of ways. But I do think that this dude has good ideas. I think the magic's cool. The gods are cool. And I don't think that he's struggling to put together sentences. I don't think that's where he's at. Because, I mean, I've read traditionally published authors where I'm just like, what? Like, what am I reading? He's not that guy. So it does not shock me that possibly Empire's Ruin is actually a lot better. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. I mean, and the story, like, the back of the book sounds awesome because it is. We just didn't get that. The book starts too early, and it ends basically with the inciting incident. The king has died, and now they're going to try to deal with the Empire.
Yeah.
But that happens so late. Like, they actually doing something. He should have died, and all of that action, like all of that the actual conflict, as opposed to the manufactured one, should have happened, and then it could have kept going, and actually had a book length's worth of stuff happening, instead of It
always makes you wonder if, like, is there maybe his original idea was maybe a duology, and they said, well, we need a trilogy. I always wonder about these things because publishers do have a hand in kind of where the work goes. I don't know all of the ins and outs of it, but you wonder, like, maybe he had a duology, maybe he had a standalone, and they said, no, we would like a trilogy once they saw the finished book. I don't know, but I didn't read book 2 and 3 clearly, and I won't. But it makes me wonder, like, if you look at the whole story from the trilogy, like, if you're like, oh, this would have been really good 2 books. You know what I mean?
Is that the feeling that we'll get?
Maybe. But it's also like, it just needs a content editor who just says, like, no, that's an error.
Yeah, the editor.
The 10 facing, that's just an error. There's just things that are errors that the content editor for his future books needs to be like, no, you need to fix these. These are just mistakes.
It also makes you wonder, like, when a publisher picks up a book, and I'm not trying to, like, super duper windmill 360 tomahawk dunk this guy or anything, but, like, it does make you wonder, like, what makes a book get picked up? Like, is it always the writing, or is it, hey, this has a lot of concepts that sell well, and these are like a good length amount, and they're fast, so people will pick these. Like, it's so sellable, even though the story itself could use a lot of wrench and bolts and everything else. Makes you wonder, like, why stuff gets picked up.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably about the right length that publishers are looking for fantasy.
Yeah, and it has a lot of parallels with things that have been successful. So.
Well, someone else said that even internally, the book is inconsistent about saying whether Caden or Valen is the older brother. Like, it contradicts itself within the text. Like, that's an error. Like, that is supposed to be caught. And repeated crap, like women can't sit the unhewn throne, and the fact that they've been there for 8 years, that's your job. Like, you're paid. Like, I'll do your job for you, and you can come teach my class. You can teach. They don't care if you.
They couldn't teach it.
I wouldn't trust the content editor of this book to do your job, Alan. Sorry.
Well, the thing is, it's public education. Nobody cares. Whatever. So that's anyway.
I have one last thing from the end of the book that made me roll my eyes. I said that I would continue if he did a specific thing, and it's when Valen, like, had Yuri cornered, and he could have just done nothing, and everyone else would have showed up, and they killed him, and he was like, "No, I'll go fight him 1-on-1." If Brian Stavely had just had Yuri kill Valen there, I would have been like, I admire the consequences. I will give you another try, sir. But I was like, oh no, he's gonna go fight the guy who's beaten him every time, and he's gonna win this time.
Of course he is.
Or even not kill him, even if he, like, lost a hand, how much better would it instantly be if he's like, no, I'm not going to wait for them. I'm going to go fight this guy. And literally, like,
the reason that would have been cool for me is because it would have been something unexpected, which this book had nothing of. Like, just didn't have anything that, that when it happened, we were like, whoa, instead it's like,
well, oh, yeah. And if you're
the murderer, okay.
if you have foresight into something happening and being predictable, you can build a dread around it, right? Like, it's going to happen. I can't spoil it, but like the end of A Dance with Dragons is rather obvious on a reread, and you're just like dreading it coming, right? But I would say that it's fairly predictable, even though at first on the first read you're like, oh my god, like that's crazy. And he didn't capitalize on any of that while writing a predictive narrative. Yeah. It's just a predictable narrative, rather.
Sarah, before we keep dunking, what did you enjoy about it? Because I think you liked it better than everyone here.
I liked the world building, like we talked about. I think that the magic is cool. I like creatures. Like whenever creatures show up in fantasy, I'm always happy. So I like the birds. I like the weird underground creatures and the gross, like, ooze egg that he ate. That was disgusting in a good way. And I like the weird, like, spider creatures. So like all of those things were appealing to me. I like all of these. Like, this is the hard part. All of the tropes that he uses. I like Battle School. I like these monk characters. I like the, sibling who's off in the capital having to do the political stuff while other people are off.
You like murderous bully?
I do not like murderous bullies. Okay. And this is where it just barely misses. Like, what would have been amazing is if they were all friends and it was genuinely hard and heartbreaking for Valen to try to figure out who's betraying him, because they're supposed to be a brotherhood. They're supposed to have each other's backs. Like, that is what this entire squad is about. This is why it works. This is why you can fly up in the air on a bird with 5 other people, because you trust them. And that would have made it so much better. So I think it was just, there are so many things that come so close to, oh my gosh, sorry, the things that I love.
Scared the piss out of me.
Hold on, when your dog starts barking, you can come back. I don't understand fantasy authors thinking that the only way people can have conflict is if you're in like a training setting, like a school setting, is for someone to literally hate the guts of the protagonist and be a murderous bully. I see conflict all the time at school that is nothing like that. It just seems so lazy at this point. It's so overdone. Like, people can like each other and still have interesting conflict.
I have 2 things I remembered I like.
I don't understand it.
I remember 2 more things I like about this book.
Let's hear it.
What?
Okay, the bigger one is I liked Caden's reaction to finding out his dad was dead.
Yes.
His reaction to being like, holy crap, I am now the bloody emperor. I thought that was good. And I liked the flea when he was just like, yeah, we're just been training the basic stuff. Let me think about it. Yeah, every day we've been training the basic stuff. All right, I remembered 2 more things I like. That's all I have to.
Nice. I also like Akil being like, oh, you're the emperor now. Yeah. And Caden was generally worried. He's like, oh man, Akil ain't gonna like me anymore because I'm the emperor.
Yeah, see, the people in the monastery like each other except for Tam.
Yeah.
But
the thing is, Tam is just,
again, if you only have one of these,
he doesn't understand human emotion.
If you only have one of those type of characters, which is like an elder that is abusive, if you had one, it would work.
But it was in both of the freaking scenarios.
Arguably 3, really.
Oh yeah.
Is Adair? We find out, the dude's her father's killer or conspirer or whatever it was. Yeah, I will say this prologue is one of my favorite prologues from a modern fantasy book.
It was a cool prologue.
Like I still want to read that story.
Yeah, if there's like a prequel thing about the war between, like,
I'd give it a shot.
The completely like super numerous humans against the immortal, like basically immortal, emotionless, like, angels. That sounds sick. Although I sometimes think this about fantasy books, there's very often like a big war in the past, and a lot of the time I'm just like, and it's returning, and a lot of those are like literally my favorite series, but I'm just like, damn, that big war in the past where it's like it was a full-scale war for the fate of humanity. That sounds pretty fun. Which,
yeah,
for this, it was just the book I didn't think was good, so it made it. What if we had that
story? What if we told about the cool story in the past? Sarah, you can finish what you were saying now that the dog is not.
Sorry, I locked him in the basement with Andrew. He's not alone down there, but he's.
Are you pushing him to enlightenment?
He's exiled. Yes, I buried him up to
his head. Yeah.
In blankets. I like the Skullsworn too. I thought that that was cool. Like, it was not a surprise. Again, like, no one was shocked that this person had skills, but it did make me interested in the Skullsworn as a group. It's disappointing that apparently that book sucks. So.
I was expecting them to be bad because at first, like when they didn't say the Emperor was dead, like I was like, okay. So
I thought they were the ones coming to kill.
Yeah. So that actually kind of got me that it was the guards that were betraying them and not the Skullsworn. It's really basically the only time.
My problem with the Skullsworn is the Skullsworn are the same as the Dashini from the Greatcoats,
Yes.
who are the same as every other elite assassin band in fantasy.
Yeah.
The trick of making the
like,
Greatcoats sound
they
unique.
kill a whole bunch of people like at one time because they're these elite, and it's just not interesting because it's the same. Do one thing that's different. Oh, they worship the god of death. Make them worship the freaking god of hairdos, and that would be interesting. Like they have to have like these.
Sounds
weird,
very Pratchett-like.
Time for your haircut.
Yeah, they've got to have like like freaking the mom from Rugrats hair or something.
Lock the door.
In general, I'm not the biggest fan of like
He's
assassin
not
groups.
one,
It's
right?
actually why I didn't read Assassin's Apprentice for a long time.
Same.
Just because I'm kind of like they end up just being human death machines, which I just don't find that
Dude, so
interesting.
many assassins are recognizable too, which is like the dumbest thing in the world.
Yeah, like
My favorite assassins are the smiling ones, like because they're always
Wow.
dour, always like.
Fitz usually isn't smiling, but he's my favorite assassin.
No, he's
so.
usually messing it up.
We need
He's trying.
We need a middle-aged mom assassin who eats too many Oreos.
Let's
That's one
go.
of the reasons that people like freaking Misaki from Sword of Kaigen so much
Yeah.
because it is a middle-aged mother who is kicking butt and taking names. That is such an unusual thing for that character to be doing.
Yes.
But assassins in fantasy are a lot of them cut from the same cloth. I completely agree, Derry. Vetinari, the patrician, is one of my favorite assassins.
Wait, Gary Fitz. What?
Yeah, he
This is a betrayal.
That's just.
Oh, that was interesting. It looked like Alan was talking to Jake. Like in the same,
It's not a spoiler because
he's like looking over there.
Sorry, but yeah. Just the assassin thing it's just they never have any weaknesses. They're just like, oh, I'm an emotionless killing machine. Like, what about an assassin that is really good at their job, but is like super upset about a breakup, like falls for men, like and falls in love with them in like 2 weeks, and then comes on too strong, and they always leave her, and then she goes and takes out her rage like by killing people in the street.
I just find like
At least it's different.
I just find assassins like they should be good at like poisoning and maybe like arrow things. They tend to be better than the actual soldiers. Credit to Erickson for his soldiers tend to, when they straight up fight the assassins get their ass kicked because the soldiers are learning to fight straight up their entire life, and the assassins should be focusing on that a little bit. But realistically, if you're an assassin and you're fighting 18 people, you suck at assassinating and things have gone horribly. They should be learning how to like manipulate people, poison things, and be subtle. So it bothers me because assassins all the time are moderately good at assassin stuff, but really the author just wanted to write Captain America.
Yeah.
And he just thinks assassins are generally better at fighting than soldiers or like knights or whatever. Anyway,
Sarah, I agree. I didn't hate the Skullsworn. Like, I'm just like, oh, this again. But all that whole, why is my phone ringing? Who is calling me?
It's Brian Staveley.
So, I liked everything after they left the monastery and were on the run and crap. What? I didn't even hear what you said.
I said it's Brian Staveley calling you.
Sorry, Brian Staveley, if you're watching this, I'm sure you're a nice person.
Alan.
It's not, fortunately. But I didn't even think about that. I'm so sorry, Mr. Staveley.
He seems like a great guy.
Yeah, he does. And he's a former teacher, which I like. I just didn't love this book. Now, I liked it, and I was interested enough and enjoyed the last section enough to see where it goes. First of all, I have to get proven right that Tan is literally a Cestrine and didn't even bother changing his name. He's just like, oh, my name's Tanis. Well, now it's Tan. Guess what? I'm hiding in plain sight.
Well, it's not like anyone knows them, so I guess that would work.
I know. And no one wonders how this guy has. Hey, where'd you get that angel spear? I found it. Oh, how do you know so much about the angels?
Checks out.
I've studied it. Well, I didn't know there was a lot of literature left on that. I have good sources. I'm a member of the New York Library of Congress. Oh, okay. Well, I don't go there, so maybe. Anyway,
I think it's actually a deeper commentary on how we trust a lot of sources. That I'm just kidding.
Yeah. It's like I didn't look at it on Wikipedia. So, Sarah, I hope you will come and join me again and talk to me about the next book when we read it.
I just ordered the next one, so I will read it.
If you read it and you both say it's an upgrade, I'll consider it.
Yeah, there's
Would you
three.
consider skipping this one and just starting the next series, Jimmy? Like reading a summary and then going on to series 2?
If I'm ever to read Brian Stavely again, that's exactly
there's 3 people continuing Brian Stavely I didn't know Alan was continuing, but Alan now it was to Sarah and a guy on Alex's Discord named Oliver, because you're all lukewarm enough on book 1
What'd you call
to
me?
be in a similar camp as me, but not quite just lukewarm enough to continue. So if you guys say Empire of Ruin rules, I'll be like, all right, this series can go away. I'll just start the second trilogy.
That's a good point. Sarah, when we finish, we should read, we should just have Jake and Jimmy read a summary, chuck it, read a summary of the first 3 books and then read Empire of Ruin, because if he has improved, like we all acknowledge there's seeds of good ideas in here.
And we should bring them on and give them a quiz, a multiple choice quiz. You have to guess which answers are right. What actually happened in the book? Was it
nice.
A?
Are you, Jake and Jimmy, are y'all willing to come on?
Yeah.
After Sarah finished, and we will give you a multiple choice quiz on what you think on what happened in the other.
Bro, you could bring me on for a binding quality stream, and I would be in.
Yeah, I am. That sounds really fun.
Oh,
I will
what?
definitely be doing that.
A binding quality of hardbacks, because binding sucks now.
Oh, nice. But anyway, indeed. So, does anybody have any final thoughts, Jake? I'm going to go around. You guys can give your final thoughts. Again, I thought there were good ideas. I like his action scenes. I think he writes really good action scenes.
I feel like I'm almost the target audience for this book and still didn't like it. That's my final thought.
I would like to say you probably said the least negative things on this stream. you were the most
measured.
Yes, you were. You were measured. Very Canadian of you.
You guys didn't get as much. Some people said they wanted to see salty Jake, because I'm not super salty on BookTube for the most part. But...
Gibby says she sees his promise here with book 2.
Okay, what did Zibby think of book 1?
I'll scroll up. Jimmy, any final thoughts?
For how much I did not like this book, I do think that Stavely has some promise. I didn't think his writing was offensively bad or anything. I think there was a lot of really good things about the way he approaches like actually writing. So that's always fun. I like to go line by line in pieces of a story that resonate with me and try to figure out why they're making decisions they are. I do that with every author. And I thought Stavely had a pretty good hand on what he was using his sentences for. It didn't really come together in the end. But with that said, it's still better than Cage of Souls by Adrian Trofkowski, and it's definitely better than Fires of Heaven by Robert Jordan. So, Will Time's awful.
Jimmy,
I just wanted to rile people up.
Read Guns of the Bleeding Dawn.
So good.
Tchaikovsky, how you say his name?
Tchaikovsky, yeah.
Tchaikovsky. I am totally down to keep trying him. He's wrote way too many books to give up.
I just
didn't like it.
You need to read Ogres, his novella.
I would just remind you all to go to Jimmy's top books of 2020 and know that The Great Hunt is on his top book section.
The Great Hunt's a good book. It as long as he was following Tolkien, he was fine.
Oh.
Outside of that,
this is Tiberius Claudius Nero Germanicus, aka Claudius. He will not get off my desk when I am at this computer. Claudius, go bother your mom.
Well, why are you using his desk, Alan?
Yeah.
Tchaikovsky, I'm excited to read more of his stuff, guys. Ogres is cool. I want to read Children of Time. I'm excited. I just didn't like Cage of Souls. It's just
that's fine. I haven't read it yet, and it pleases me greatly that all the people reading Ogres have enjoyed it, because I really, really liked Ogres.
It's like, why are you getting riled up after I deliberately tried to rile you up?
Well, actually, the Wheel of Time comment was the real rile up.
It's because Jake, he doesn't value your opinion enough to allow it to affect him.
Damn.
My wife just said that's mean. Not me.
I didn't say that.
Sarah, final thoughts?
I liked what this could have been, and I hope that it becomes more of what I would like it to be in the future.
but please don't read more before the mad ship, or I will unsubscribe and leave your Discord.
That is a threat.
I think it's pretty reasonable, and I don't even think you can argue that much with it. If you decide, I don't even know what book 2 is called, but if you decide to prioritize that before,
Well, we should think of it as prioritizing Alan, because I'm reading it with Alan. It's not a slight against Mad Ship. It is admiration for a friend.
That's right. It's loyalty.
I've offered. Want a buddy read the mad ship?
It's loyalty. It's treason that Jake speaks of. Guns of the Dawn is excellent. Okay, so cool, guys. 77 of you. Thank you so much for joining in. It does please me to know that more people liked it than I thought. The Discord made it.
Yeah, I don't hate this book.
Yeah.
You know, I know I'm really negative on it, but I don't hate it. I didn't feel like I wasted my time.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
talking about it is always fun. Like talking about books is always just makes everything better. So the read along, the official read along has been canceled because there were too many people. Like again, there's me, Sarah, and like 3 other people who are going to be continuing, and I think every one of those people does not actually have a BookTube channel, so I don't even have anybody to come on the live stream. So
you can get Andrew's Wizardly Reads. That's about it.
Yeah,
he liked book 1.
So instead, starting in May, there will be a new read along on my channel, The Shadow Campaigns by Django Wexler. The first book is The 1,000 Names, which, if you've watched Book Jeopardy, appears on every episode. And
I was going to say, people will know the answers now. This is really why you chose it. Someone can get that question.
We will vote on it. But if you like Flintlock Fantasy, if you guys like what Promise of Blood could have been, you should read Shadow Campaigns, because it's Flintlock Fantasy done right. I really like it. And it's got a really like brilliant tactician character, which I always love.
I really like those as well.
But yeah, so guys, thank you so much for joining us here. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. I appreciate you guys, those who tried to get, even if you DNF'd it, like I'm giving you a hard time. Even if you DNF'd it, thank you so much for tuning in and for giving it a shot. You know, I know it's not for everybody. I will read Soldier Sun Trilogy. I need some time to freaking read. Like, I just need to.
What a hipster. Starting off with Soldier Sun.
Why?
Because it. Okay.
Too many people like Home of the Elderly.
The premise. Well, one, to spite everybody. 2, the other reason is the back of the book sounds more interesting than the back of Assassin's Apprentice. Now, I have too many people who've told me Realm of the Elderlings is amazing, so that is why I would prioritize that. But if I had not heard anything and read the back of either one of both of those books, Soldier Sun is more interesting. It's freaking military, like it's military.
You let me know when you're gonna read it, and I'll probably read it.
Yeah, I think I was gonna as well. Like when other people are reading it, I'll be like, all right, I could use some more.
We'll set a time, maybe toward the end of the year, we can read it, and then Young come on and Young talk to me, and you can tell me about how it compares to Realm of the Elderlings. Anyway. Guys, thanks so much for being here. Thank you to my guests. Guys, if you're not following them, please follow them.
Can I plug something?
Yeah.
Tomorrow night, Chatting with Nuts, live, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And my guest is Sarah from Sarah Reads.
So you guys tune in. I know it's not the Alan part 5 that you were hoping for, but
try not to be too disappointed.
I'm just kidding. Yeah. Look, I can't think of anybody better to be on Chatting with Nuts. So I will be tuning in. While I try to do work, I always tune in. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be productive while I
You really are always in. You might as well be on every episode.
It's because I can't not comment. My voice must be heard.
Same. Every time. I'm like, I'll just play it in the background. And then you say something. I'm like, no, I need to comment on that.
Well, I'm wrong.
The things I say are too profound in all caps to go unnoticed. And I just can't, I try to just listen. And I'm like, hold on, turn.
It would be a disservice to the world to keep them on the inside.
Chatting with Alan with Jimmy Nuts is really good, though. So if you guys don't watch it, you absolutely should. It is a time sink, though, and you will get nothing accomplished for 3 hours, unless it's with Alan, in which case 4.5 hours.
Word. So, yeah. So tune into that tomorrow. I will be there. Thank you guys so much. Don't go. I'm going to end the broadcast. The rest of you, have a great rest of your evening. And as always, don't forget,
always keep turning the page. That's Steel Jimmy's.
I knew it was reading the page, and I forgot that what led into it. Always keep turning the page. There you go.